Okay, we are live on YouTube and we are live on Facebook. Welcome to people on YouTube. Thank you for being here. People beginning now to come in on Facebook, and thank you for coming in on Facebook. Lot to talk about this lovely day. Don't know what it's like where you're calling from. Please tell us where you're calling from and we'll give you a shout out. But here in the great British city of Glasgow, it is a lovely day, a lovely autumn, clear autumn day. Very, very nice here in Glasgow. How is the weather where you're watching from? Please do come in. And please do share this stream. Please share the stream on Facebook and please do give us a thumbs up and a subscribe if you're watching here on YouTube. Good to see folk coming in. Brilliant stuff. Well, we're back in our nerve centre this Saturday. Last Saturday we were out on the street in the first day of lockdown. We're back in the nerve centre broadcasting to you today. Hi James, good afternoon to you in sunny Greenock. Good afternoon to you Elizabeth in Edinburgh. Hi TC from a foggy South London. And Derek says it's lovely where he is as well. Pete says, hi, Alistair. Hi to you. And hi to Ernest. And Ernest, you're right. We won't give up. Thank you for the kind words. There are, as you say, some bad people inside and outside the UK who really want to see the kingdom split up. Well, if we have any say in the matter, Ernest, it's not going to happen. Brian from the United States. Good. We're going to touch on the United States as well later in the program. Sue from Cornwall and Pauline from East Kilbride, and William says hi, and Alex from Cambuslang. Good to see David also here on YouTube saying afternoon from Edinburgh. Folks, let's begin. It is Saturday. It's Scotland, it's 1 p.m. and we're back in original form, the legible, credible, inevitable storm, which is a force for good, broadcasting to you live from our nerve centre right here in the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConaughey. And we're broadcasting on YouTube and we're also broadcasting over here on Facebook for the first half hour or so of the program. And then we'll be switching over to YouTube completely for the final half hour of the program. And this is our 35th consecutive weekend broadcast, which really is something that we're very pleased about. And we decided when we began that we were going to stick to it. And we have really stuck to it. And thank you so much to the great team behind us who enable us to do all this, because we do have a team that ensures that we can broadcast clearly and well every Saturday. So thank you to the team behind us. Leslie says, keep up the good work. And June says, hi from Cambuslang. Tony says, hi, Alistair here on YouTube. And Mary sends us a flag. Well, do you know, somebody spoke to me this morning and they were expressing their exasperation with the situation. And they used the phrase, no one is doing any good for us right now. And that was in response to the sort of depressing news that we're seeing every time we switch on the mainstream media or lift up a newspaper or switch on social media. And in particular, what was upsetting this person this morning was Bristol Zoo is closing down as a consequence of the COVID restrictions. And that's a zoo that's been going for at least 100 years. and that's an economic tragedy, and it's also a social and cultural tragedy as well for Bristol. But this sort of thing is happening all over, and it just seems that nobody is doing any good for us right now. It doesn't matter, we're not getting party political about it. You know, the Labour Party in Wales is making a bigger mess of things as the SNP in Scotland, as are the Tories in England. So this isn't a party political thing. This is exasperation with our entire political class across all party political boundaries. They're all doing the same thing, except trying to be worse than each other in a downward spiral. To where? To where? Bill says, good afternoon. And George says, you're appreciated. Keep the faith. We will, George. We will keep the faith. Jonathan says, so good of the government to clarify that people have to stop drinking as soon as they've finished eating in pubs. Yes, well, that's another thing. All the pubs that are now closing. I was in the centre of Glasgow yesterday, and there was, I won't mention the name of the pub, but it looked like it was getting gutted and getting taken down, and that getting cleared out. Now, that's like one of the main places in central Glasgow. It was looking like it wasn't going to be surviving. And of course, that's just typical of all the businesses. David says, tuning in from loyal and true East Kilbride. Yeah, so as we said last week, the SNP is not running the country. It's ruining the country. And again, we could say the same thing about the Labour Party in Wales or the Tory government in England. It seems that our politicians are not running things, they're ruining things for everybody across the board, socially, economically, and in particular, of course, health-wise. And that's something that I just want to flag up, because it is important to flag up. You know, here's an article from the Daily Telegraph. Diagnosis delays will lead to a tsunami of Scots cancer deaths. Now, what this is saying is that there's been a 40% drop in people being diagnosed with the disease during the first months of lockdown. Public Health Scotland figures indicate diagnoses fell by around 4,000 between March and June compared to the previous year. Well, again, that's an outrage, and our politicians, all of them, from all parties, are to blame for this. You know, ultimately, Nicola Sturgeon carries the can, and the Scottish National Party carries the can, but they're all to blame because they have not properly weighed the risks, the other risks in the balance here. They've not properly considered the wider dangers of their COVID obsessionalism, what we described last week as their COVID consensus. And in England as well, official statistics show that the number of people, that there's been a 75% increase in deaths from dementia among women in England, and a 25% increase in deaths from heart disease among men, and that a total of 2 million people have been waiting longer for treatment, and that mental health and self-harm among teenagers has increased, as well as many more suicides predicted. These things, the politicians who are allowing this to go ahead really need to be confronted on this matter. And because our entire political class, it seems, are going along with it, there's nobody to do it in Parliament, but something has to arise from the public to stop this tragedy which is unfolding. Paul says hospitals are largely empty and appointments cancelled. Do they want people to die? Well, the more it goes on, the more people ask questions like that. Pete says they're complicit and they're well paid. That's right. There's, as we pointed out last week, the average wage of an MSP to sit and do nothing except nod your head with your party leader is £64,500 a year. okay? If you're getting paid that kind of money, you would think you would have some kind of public duty to at least have a mind of your own instead of just being an automaton doing what you're told. And it's very interesting. Once people get into a party situation, they kind of lose the mind of their own. There's only a few people, and they're all in Westminster. There's none in Holyrood. But there's the few in Westminster who are maybe older backbenchers who know that they're never going to get into the cabinet, who can have a mind of their own. But they are literally just a handful of people. Or you have got your couple of assembly members in London, Peter Whittle and David Curtin, who do yeoman's work. Tommy says he can't get proper treatment for his particular ailment, that's sad to see. So yeah, we put out an email update last night, and we said that the COVID consensus trying to eradicate the disease is like a wild goose chase, and it is a vain goal born of excessive pride, by which is meant the MPs think that they know better than nature itself, that they can somehow dominate a virus, that they can dominate nature. That's born from excessive pride. And so many of our politicians these days have that excessive pride, which leads them to lead society in the wrong directions. They're disjointed, by which we mean they're not able to see the big picture, because they concentrate on one thing to the detriment of everything else, such as these horrendous diseases and problems that are building up for the future. And we'll put out this video after we've finished here, but there's an extremely good video on YouTube by Dr. Mike Yeadon, who we've mentioned before, who is Pfizer's ex-chief scientific advisor. And he believes that, in fact, the pandemic is over and that it probably ended sometime around the summer, sometime around midsummer, by which was meant there was no longer sufficient people susceptible to the virus in order for it to take off, that the number of immune people had effectively reached the state that we can call herd immunity. And he believes that that is borne out by the figures. And what we're looking at just now, he has said, is almost like a pathology of its own. We're turning the test results into a pathology of its own. And remember, when we hear about people being infected, that doesn't mean that they are ill. They can be perfectly healthy. So there's a lot of falsity going on at the moment, which leads a lot of people to look into other things and wonder, is there some kind of other wider agenda going on here? Yes, as Yeadon says, mass testing is in danger of creating a pathology of its own, because so many false positives will give the impression of an increase when it is not an increase, and when in fact we are at herd immunity. So we'll put that link up after we've finished here. Mark says, keep fighting for this greatest union in the history of the world. Scotland is as much part of the United Kingdom as the other nations, and long may that continue. Absolutely. Without Scotland, there would be no United Kingdom. Without England, there'd be no United Kingdom. The United Kingdom requires Scotland to be part of it. If Scotland left, it wouldn't be leaving the UK, it would be destroying the UK. And you know, that's maybe quite a good point to bring in a comment that Sturgeon let slip this week. And I'm sure she didn't intend to, but by this comment, she in fact confirmed what A Force for Good has been saying all along about the nature of the United Kingdom. You know, she was talking about these ridiculous Christmas restrictions which they're trying to bring in upon us. And she was saying that she wanted to seek as much similarity throughout the United Kingdom, so that Scotland's restrictions would be broadly similar to the restrictions in the rest of the United Kingdom. And she said this was because, quote, "We want to have the same position across the UK given the family patterns that exist," close quote. Now, what she meant by that, of course, is that the United Kingdom is a nation of families, as we have always said all along, and that's how we describe it. We say the United Kingdom is much more a nation of families, quite literally, than it is a family of nations. It's a nation of literal flesh and blood families. And that's key to understanding our concept of the United Kingdom and of unionism, that the United Kingdom is a nation of families. And there we have Nicola Sturgeon inadvertently confirming that for us when she says, "We want to have the same position across the UK given the family patterns that exist." And we developed the idea of Britain as a nation of families, much more than a family of nations. And we developed the idea of Britain as a nation of unions, much more than a union of nations, in our wee book here, our wee book for the union, which you can get at our shop. It's only a £5. Christmas is coming. Order today and you'll have it next week. And buy a couple, send them to friends. Great wee book. It's only a £5. And you know, that leads us on as well. Did any of you see, or have you seen, this advert that appears? You can't get away from it, certainly if you're on YouTube anyway, and I'm presuming it's also on terrestrial television. And it shows a woman walking down a back street in Leith, and she's quite, very confident and loud, and telling us all about the dangers of COVID and why we have to basically obey the Scottish National Party. And then she stops in front of a boarded up cafe and starts talking, and then tells us that that's her cafe, and something to the effect that, the sooner we all obey Nicola Sturgeon, the sooner we can get out of this and she can return to her cafe. And I saw that and I thought, what sort of cafe owner would willingly allow themselves to be used as SNP propaganda? And I've never personally seen a cafe owner or somebody working in a cafe that is so comfortable in front of the camera and so eloquent about it. But I thought, well, there you go. They've struck lucky. They found a cafe owner who's an SNP supporter and who's happy for her cafe to be shut down. Turns out, surprise, surprise, she's not a real cafe owner. She is an actress, and the cafe itself didn't even exist. Okay, we'll put the link up there. But the SNP basically conning the viewer with a fake cafe owner and a fake cafe. And so that's unbelievable, really, the extent to which we were getting played by that, because I sincerely believed that was a real person telling us a real story about her real cafe and that we had to go along with her. And then I discovered that, oh no, that's just an actress. I mean, how wrong is that for the SNP administration to play us like that? That heads should have rolled for that. Like, they think they can just get away for it. Government slammed for using fake cafe. Well, it's not the government, it's the SNP administration. But for some reason, the Telegraph goes along with that absurd description of the SNP executive. And it cost £60,000 and featured an actress playing the owner of the fictional Hilltop Cafe. Well, she was a very convincing actress because she convinced me that she was a real person, and I was really annoyed to find out that I had been played like that. And what sort of administrations play their populace like that? Okay, I would say totalitarian states. Totalitarian states. Is Scotland a totalitarian state? Well, according to some it is, because a really good article appeared in the Times this week. Ruling elite are abusing the law. In the Times of the 24th of November, Scotland is becoming a country in which the population is forced to conform to the vision and values of the ruling elite. A book endorsed by a UK government advisor and former Supreme Court judge has claimed. Ian Mitchell, the author, warns that the country is on the road to becoming an authoritarian state. Well, I'm so glad that he pointed that out, because it's certainly on the road to becoming a one-party state, the way things are going. And his book was republished with forewords by Lord Hope, who is a former law lord and Supreme Court judge. And Mitchell here, who wrote the book, points out that the executive has gathered more and more power for itself. And the lines between the civil service and the administration have become blurred. And an excess of legislation has been introduced, which is poorly scrutinised in committees. And I like this bit. Much of the SNP government's behaviour is driven by a hyper-moralism that has had a chilling effect on freedom of speech in Scotland. And is that so true? Hyper-moralism from a sort of secular moralism. You know, it's not like a sort of Oliver Cromwell religious moralism. It's like a secular moralism. And of course, backed by a state-controlled police force whose unification threatens to render it a gendarmerie in the future. Well, it was Alex Salmond who centralised the police prior to the 2014 referendum, because he wanted to be in control of the police. If he had won the referendum and everybody had flipped their lid, he wanted to be in control of the police. And now, of course, Nicola Sturgeon is effectively in control of the police in a hierarchical, pyramidal structure. So, yeah, what we also thought was important here is that he highlighted the alleged, well, it's not alleged, it's the politicisation of the civil service. And he cites the use of civil servants to help the SNP administration to produce Scotland's future, which was that big doorstopper that they produced back in 2013 on our money. They got the British civil service in Scotland to produce a book that was given away free to anybody who asked. And this was the British civil service in Scotland. British civil service in Scotland who were basically paid by us taxpayers to break up the United Kingdom. Absolute madness. Absolute madness. And we wrote an article about that, which we'll put up. And we have been long campaigning to get something done about that. Now, I'm just going to see if we can resume our Facebook broadcast. There we go. That looks like we're back on again. Must just have been a little problem there in the atmosphere. So yeah, we'll put that link up as well, because something has to be done about this. We cannot go in, if there was, God forbid, a second referendum, we cannot go into that with the entire might of the British civil service on the side of the Scottish National Party. That's just not acceptable. That must never happen again. And that is something that the Scottish Tories need to campaign on, and Scottish Labour too need to campaign on ensuring that the civil service in Scotland cannot be used specifically to break up the United Kingdom. It cannot be used for that. That's not its job. Its job is to help the party that's running do just like the basic sort of laws and find out and research and help them to run the country. It's not to break up the country. The British civil service must have no role in any kind of policy which acts against the integrity of the United Kingdom. That's just a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. And any British government that allows that is just being traitorous. Okay, well, I got that off my chest. Talking about my chest, this t-shirt is available at our Teespring store. Now, this weekend, including Monday, we have our Black Friday weekend sale on all our patriotic products on our Teespring store. And so we'll put the link up there. If you go to that, if you buy any of our products, this is our classic AFFG heart, but we've got a range of t-shirts and a range of hoodies. Our biggest selling one is Scottish and British t-shirt in a range of colors and in all sizes. And if you purchase stuff there, when you go to the checkout, there'll be a little bit where it says, I have a promo code. If you put in the promo code, which is AFFG 2020, all one word, AFFG 2020 in capital letters, put that promo code in and you'll get 15% off your order. Okay, so that's our Black Friday weekend sale on at our Teespring store. Jonathan says, let it all out. Ernest says, another referendum must not be allowed. I agree with you, Ernest. I am concerned at the extent to which it might be given if they were to win a second, if they were to win at Holyrood next year. Is the British government led by Boris Johnson strong enough to say no? I hope that it is, but I'm not seeing a sense from the British government at the moment that it's strong on very much other than just imprisoning its own people. So I don't know if they will. We have to presume that they won't. AFFG is working to the assumption that the British government will not be strong enough or will not care enough to actually forbid another referendum. We have to work to that principle. We hope, of course, that we are wrong about that. Let's hope that we are wrong about that, but we have to work on the assumption that if the SNP promoted it on the back of another Holyrood election victory, that the British government would not be strong enough to resist. It should be. We've made all the arguments for it, how it can properly resist, but will it be strong enough to resist? That's the big question. Now, here I want to tell you what our plans are going forward. And this is a big announcement which I'm about to make about a big broadcast which is coming up. Now, every Christmas time, we have a Christmas crowdfunder, which runs for 28 days. And during that time, we seek to make enough money to service many of the projects which we have for the forthcoming year. And of course, we as an organization have been getting bigger and bigger each year since we started in 2012. So next year will be our 9th year of action and advocacy. Now, in our very first ever crowdfunder, which was 2 years ago, we set that up because we wanted to create a crowdfunding culture within unionism. Crowdfunding had never been done in unionism. The Scottish nationalists were having crowdfunders all the time. If they wanted to catch the bus into town, they'd have a crowdfunder for it. If they wanted to get a cup of tea at a cafe, they'd have a crowdfunder for it. And they'd raise hundreds and thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of pounds. And we thought, where are the unionists doing this? No unionists were doing it. So we said we have to create a crowdfunding culture in unionism. And we began 2.5 years ago or thereabouts. And in our first Christmas crowdfunder, I believe we sought for £2,000 and we raised about 2.5. In our crowdfunder last year, we aimed for 5,000 and we raised 5,500. And that was so important because that money has helped, for example, to ensure that we've been able to broadcast weekly for the last 35 weeks, as well as do other things this year, as well as produce our little wee book for the union. This year, though, because of our growth and because of what's going to be coming next year in the all-important election year, we are going to have a crowdfunder beginning on the 9th of December, and it will be running to Epiphany, which is the 6th of January, as 28 days. And we call our Christmas crowdfunders Yule Britannia Christmas crowdfunders. Okay, and they've gone down very well and they've been very successful. Now, this year, we're not shooting for 2,000. We're not shooting for 5,000. We are shooting for £15,000 because that's what we are going to need if we are to do what we want to do in 2021. Well, it's only a fraction of what we need, but it is a significant fraction of what we need. So we're going to be shooting for 15,000, and that will be beginning on the 9th of December, which is Wednesday the 9th, and they'll be running right through to the 6th of January. But here's the thing which we're going to incorporate into our Yule Britannia Christmas crowdfunder. We are going to do another world's first. Something that's never been done in the history of unionism. Okay, we are going to have a union telethon, a 10-hour broadcast, a union telethon. Now, this is going to be on Saturday the 12th, and we'll begin at 1 p.m. and we will keep going until 11 o'clock at night, a straight 10 hours, okay? And during that 10-hour union telethon, we are going to aim to get in as much of that 15K as we possibly can. So this is save the union, basically, the union in need. This is a union telethon to raise 15K. Now, I'm not going to be standing here doing it because I can't stand for 10 hours, much as I would like to. So we'll be doing it in another studio, and we'll be doing it live on YouTube, broadcasting via Zoom. So what that means is if you want to phone in or contact us via Zoom, then you'll be able to do so. And if you'd like to be interviewed by us, please drop us a note. We'll put you down for the union telethon and we'll give you a time and you can come in and we can speak to you for half an hour or whatever. So we need guests. We've already got some guests who are going to be zooming in on us, but we need more people who want to phone in If you've got something interesting to say, please do that. We'll also be running competitions. We'll be giving away British themed prizes for the biggest donation in that 10-minute period or whatever. And it will also give me an opportunity to maybe have some time to drill down into some deeper topics during those 10 hours as well. And so that's an exciting thing that we've got coming up, and that will be Saturday the 12th of December from 1 o'clock till 11 o'clock, the world's first ever union telethon. Okay, folks, you heard it here first. Please spread the word. Over the next fortnight, we're going to be creating a bit of a buzz about that. And so please do share the idea and tell your friends, and let's get that 15K reached, because we as an organization need that to do what we need to do next year to save the union. And there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about there. And Tommy says that he will be donating. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you. Andrew says, if we unionists were to have a rally, would you speak at it? Of course, I certainly would, Andrew. Richard says, very good. Very good. Gives us thumbs up there. Excellent. Angus says, brilliant. Good. Well, I'm looking forward to a 10-hour union telethon. A lot to talk about. We can talk about stuff that we always talk about, but we can also talk about some of the issues that we maybe don't talk about so much. Things like the social media censorship, which is going on and which is really, really serious now. Oh my goodness, it's really serious, the social media censorship of people who just have the wrong opinion, not even being rude about it or being offensive about it. It's just if your opinion doesn't fit, then you get taken off. It's absolutely outrageous. And what's also becoming an issue now is the issue of election integrity. And that's especially the case in the USA, where I've been doing a lot of research into this, and it's something that I could talk about during the union telethon for half an hour or 45 minutes or thereabouts. But the US electoral system is not fit for purpose. It is astonishing the extent to which it can be manipulated. You know, they have voting machines. I was watching a video the other day. They have voting machines, which in the actual manuals that come with it, it shows that you can program it so that a vote does not count as 1, it counts as 0.9, or you can program it so that a vote counts as 1.1. And all of these things can be done. And I would like to think these machines would never be allowed in the United Kingdom, but they're allowed in half of the American states. And of course, they have mail-in ballots as well, which are not verifiable. And if you're interested in the meantime in this, Google a Hindu chap who's really intelligent. It's called Dr. Shiva. That'll just he's got a surname which I can't pronounce very well, and I don't have it written here, but Dr. Shiva. And he has got some excellent videos on this, and he stood in for the Republicans in a primary runoff against another Republican back on the 1st of September this year. That was to see who would be the Republican candidate against the Democrat on the 3rd of November in Massachusetts. And he can prove, and he's basically proved to my to my satisfaction, that the voting machines were rigged in order to give him a lower percentage, that a vote for him did not count as 1, it counted as less than 1, and a vote for his Republican opposition counted as more than 1. So what that's saying is that the Republican establishment is also involved in fiddling these results as much as the Democrat establishment is. So it's a really corrupt actual system. And these are serious matters that are being raised, but nobody wants to talk about them, you know. And we should, because if the US does not have a voting system of integrity, and our politicians in the West are ignoring that fact, then what does it say about them? What does it say about Boris Johnson or Nicola Sturgeon? And the reason I mention this is because Nicola Sturgeon did come out saying gleefully this week in the National that she's annoyed that Donald Trump is not conceding the, quote, outcome of a fair, free and democratic election. Well, Nicola, all you have to do is go onto YouTube and look at 1 or 2 videos, and that will make you wonder what on earth the American system is all about these days. And you should be concerned about that, because you're running the country here. And if you're allowing, and if you're not prepared to accept that the American system has got a serious problem, then, you know, that says that you don't care about election integrity in Scotland either. So you have to care about these things, okay? And you have to at least explain why people like Dr. Shiva and Rudy Giuliani and so on are not correct. And also something that should be said here, it's not individual voters. It's not like several million individual voters going in and lying, because that's not credible. It's the system's being set in such a way, whether that is mass mail-in or whether it is fiddling the machine at the center. Okay, so the actual individual doesn't really, it's out of the individual's control. It's not individual voter fraud that's going on. It is systemic machine fraud. A fascinating area, which has really only come out now, because do you know what? I don't care, but there's no way that Biden, you know, Obama got 69.5 million votes. That was the most ever of an American president. There's no way that Biden got 10.5 million more votes than Obama in 2008 and got 14 million more votes than Hillary in 2016. It's like, don't take us for fools. That's not possible, okay? It's not possible in an election where usually the figures track each other very closely over the years. So there's plenty of evidence that something has gone wrong in the US system, no question about it. And anybody concerned with election integrity in this country should be concerned about it in any country, especially in the United States. But Boris Johnson is not concerned, and Nicola Sturgeon is not concerned. And unfortunately, the Daily Telegraph is not concerned either. They're just basically taking the mick out of people who are trying to point out these facts. And so remember that the mainstream media, even though it is often interesting, the mainstream media has an agenda simply to keep the system going. And they don't like disruptors to come in, whether that's the Brexiteers or whether that's the Trumpers or whatever. So the mainstream media is something that you have to take with a pinch of salt and try to find other sources for information. And you know what? I've just looked at the time, and I want to just jump over a lot of stuff to get into something that I do want to talk about. And thank you so much for everybody. Brian says it looks like the election will be decided by the US Supreme Court. Well, it may be. Whether it's really going to be decided in time for January, I don't know. I have a feeling that we probably will be looking at a Biden presidency, which will be a disaster for the world, and it will be a disaster for America, a terrible disaster for America. So we're just going to have to see. But there's certainly a lot that will come out, hopefully, in the coming years, not from the mainstream media, but from other sources, which will explain what on earth happened this year in America. And it will be grubby, and it will not be pleasant reading. And whether it can be changed, I don't know. We'll just have to see. Yeah, that's right. As Jonathan is saying there, you know, we've spent the last 4 years being told that there was Russian interference. Well, there wasn't any Russian interference, but this time apparently there's nothing to see here. Quite right. What is the name of the book you read about censorship the other week, please, Alistair? Is this the one you're talking about? TC Deleted by Alum Bakari. A very good book. If you're interested in social media censorship, TC, I recommend it wholeheartedly. It's an easy read, it's well written, and it gives lots of food for thought. Deleted by Alum Bakari, who also writes for Breitbart. Jonathan says that Biden will make Brexit more difficult and he won't stand up to China. That's right. And he'll probably start all these bombing wars again. I can see that. I can see the Middle East being bombed again. The thing with the Democrats is that they love bombing the Middle East. During the Trump presidency, there was a slight respite from that, although he did drop 1 or 2 bombs, I think, on Syria. But he generally tried to stay away from all of that. But we'll probably be getting into all of that again. And the powers that be will be loving all of that because they love their wars, the powers that misrule us, unfortunately. Anyway, I want to talk about something which I just thought was crazy. A link that somebody some cuttings that somebody sent me saying the British Library sorry for slavery slur on Hughes. Now what this is Ted Hughes, who was a poet, former poet laureate, is tarred by the British Library for his connection to his ancestors' activities, because his ancestor was apparently somebody who profited, inverted commas, from slavery, inverted commas, or from colonialism, inverted commas. So was this his dad? Like this ancestor, was it his dad or even his grandpa? No, it was an ancestor 300 years previously. Now, that's astonishing. I mean, how many of us even know who our ancestors were 100 years ago? Yeah, this guy's getting held to account because of his ancestor 300 years ago. And I thought, in that case, what this is saying is we're all guilty, because I don't know who my ancestors were 300 years ago, but I might have had, maybe he was a Scottish soldier who was, in Africa fighting for the British Empire or something like that. So does that mean I'm tarred? Well, I'm very proud of him if he was doing that, but I'm meant to be guilty for that, am I? Ted Hughes who's now passed away, is meant to feel guilty, or his good name, Ted Hughes's good name, is just to be beshitted, to use a very good phrase, a rude phrase, but an excellent phrase. We're just to beshit his memory because of his ancestor 300 years ago. That's outrageous. And another one here, which the British Library, because they love finding people, it's like some sort of hunt. They pointed out that Samuel Taylor Coleridge was a poet. He expressed anti-slavery views personally, but he is recorded as problematical for his link to his nephew, who lived on Barbados and worked closely with those running estates which had slaves on them. His nephew. Imagine being connected to what your nephew was up to. I mean, that's pretty far removed. So Samuel Taylor Coleridge, of course, wrote, "Hear the rhyme of the ancient mariner. See his eye as he stops one of 3, mesmerizes one of the wedding guests. Stay here and listen to the nightmares of the sea. The mariner's bound to tell of his story, to tell his tale wherever he goes, to teach God's word by his own example, that we must love all things that God made, and the wedding guest is a sad and wise man." Fantastic poem, put to amazing heavy metal music by Iron Maiden. in their version of Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, which goes on for 13.5 minutes. So talking about Scottish soldiers, there's something that I would like possibly for you to do if you can. There was, and this is tied into this thing that we're just talking about here, is that in Edinburgh Castle Esplanade, there is a monument called the India Cross. And it commemorates the men of the British Army, Scots, of the 78th Highlanders who defended Lucknow in the siege of Lucknow in July to September 1857. And next to it is a plaque which helps to put the monument into context. Now think about that. We're always told by people that, oh, just keep the monument up, but put in a plaque to show the wider context. So Edinburgh Castle have done that with the India Cross, and it's a good plaque, and it's an entertaining plaque, and it describes the men of the 78th Highlanders as the heroes of Lucknow, which of course they were 100%. And remember, Edinburgh Castle is of course still a British garrisoned castle, although it's run by a bunch of woke people from something called Historic Environment Scotland. And apparently one person took offense at the word heroes because from his particular perspective, he didn't see them as heroes because his ancestors were probably the ones that were laying siege to Lucknow. So he complained to Historic Environment Scotland about the word heroes, okay? And Historic Environment Scotland, to their shame, said that they would change it, okay? Now, that's on the basis of the complaint of one biased person. And so that's an outrage, obviously, and that's just totally wrong. And there is a petition that you can sign, and we'll put the link up to that petition. Please do take 2 minutes of your time just to sign it. And if you want to make a wee comment in there, do that as well. It's already got over 2,000 people who have signed the petition to say, keep the description of these men as heroes. How dare anybody try to befoul their memory? Absolutely appalling. And how dare our woke, politically correct people in Scotland, how dare they bow down to that, bow down to it quite literally. Anyway, this is going on all over, and it is basically a revolution. It's just because we're not actually on the streets fighting, it's nevertheless an intellectual revolution, and the forces of these civic organizations are trying to overturn our history and replace it with something that we either don't know about or should be ashamed of and do not wish to defend. So there's a revolution going on, and we have to fight it back in whatever ways that we possibly can. TC says the British Library are British haters. Sometimes it seems like that. Richard says it's almost like something Stalinist. You're guilty because of your relatives. Andrew says, this is a battle honour of my regiment, the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders. Very good, sir. Bill says, can someone post the link to the t-shirt? Thank you for saying that. We'll get somebody to post the link to this t-shirt in particular, and also to the shop where we are doing a 15% off for Black Friday weekend. When you go to the checkout, click I have a promo code and put in capital letters AFFG 2020, all one word, and that should get you your 15% off. Nelson says, I will not apologise for my proud British history. Quite right, quite right. And in this week in British history, on this day, 27th of November, Thomas Flynn is one of the 2 youngest soldiers to be awarded the Victoria Cross, at only 15 years and 3 months old, when he was a drummer in the 64th Regiment of Foot, the North Staffordshire Regiment, during the Indian Mutiny, which was when the siege of Lucknow occurred. During that period, for being himself wounded, he engaged in a hand-to-hand encounter with 2 of the rebel artillerymen, perhaps one of them being an ancestor of the person who complained about the word heroes. And he, along with another Irishman, Andrew Fitzgibbon, are the 2 youngest recipients. And Andrew Fitzgibbon won it in the Third China War in 1860. And coming up, of course, 30th of November is St. Andrew's Day, and we see St. Andrew from our British perspective as not just a Scottish saint, but one of the British saints, and as such to be enjoyed by everybody throughout the United Kingdom. Scottish and British, that's how we would describe St. Andrew, and certainly come to be that. Now, back in 2 years ago, on the 30th of November, a Force for Good had our St. Andrew's Day tour, our St. Andrew's weekend tour of the hubs of hate. This was when a group of us went over to Cupar and also to Kirkcaldy and barracked the Yes hubs, which was 2 little shops, one in Cupar and one in Kirkcaldy. And talk about more of that in a minute, but we got a lot of publicity for that. It was quite a fun stunt as well. And the reason that we got animated about that was because that week previously, the Cupar hub of hate, which called itself the Crossgate Centre, had opened its doors to the public for Christmas. And they had like somebody dressed as Santa, and they were basically trying to get little children to go into the hub to get sweeties, like it was Hansel and Gretel going into the witch's cottage made of sweeties, okay? And we were just so appalled and angry about that. And they did it so brazenly, as of course they know, or they always do. You know, the Scottish Nationalists always do these things brazenly. They've got no shame. So they were enticing little children into this Yes hub, a political hub, on the basis of like sweeties and Santa and Christmas and all that kind of stuff. So we thought, we're going to go over there, give them a piece of our mind, which we did. And it was a funny event. And the one of the people in the hub of hate in Cupar ran away and called the police. And then the police came, and there was a big to-do, and it's all on video. And we've got it all on our website of forceforgood.uk. And then the next day we went over to Kirkcaldy and gave them the same treatment. And then what happened was on the 4th of December, we got this great front page in the National. Front page. Hardcore unionists are out targeting Yes hubs. Indie groups face hubs of hate. Harassment. Well, it wasn't harassment, it was just a bit of fun, but we got good publicity. And the Crossgate Centre, which was the hub of hate in Cupar, it got so annoyed by this front page coverage that it didn't sell the national newspaper, and it stopped selling the national newspaper as a result of that, because they were so black affronted by the fact that we, A Force for Good, got publicity. And then what happened is the Crossgate Centre went out. It went out of business. Just a few months later, the Crossgate Centre actually closed its doors for good. It closed its doors for good, and so that was a successful event that we were involved in. And I just want to find out, I just want to get a letter here. There was a letter that I wanted to read to you. And here it is, from somebody who's so annoyed. I write, this was in the National the next day. I write to express my displeasure at the front page of the National yesterday. I cannot understand why you would choose to show a force for good. Surely by displaying them on the front page only gives this person, I guess they meant me, the publicity he craves. If you feel the need to report, surely it would be better to do so on an inner page of the paper and do so without his picture. I can understand why the Crossgate Centre chose not to sell your paper yesterday. I have purchased it since day one and will continue to support your efforts, but I must admit, I found it hard to buy my paper today with this nasty person displayed on the front page. Well, suck it up, Buttercup, Mr. And hopefully there'll be many more front pages with a force for good displayed, because our job is to keep the British end up, as we always say. Comments here. Sounds like you got to someone, says Jonathan. Absolutely, absolutely, we did. It's Christmas time, so please do consider going to our shop and getting our Have a Glorious British Christmas cards. We're selling these in packs of 5. If you're a union supporter, which is to say, if you are already giving to us monthly, then simply drop us an email and we will send you 1 pack free of charge. It's just our little gift to you for supporting us this year. And if you would like to become a union supporter, please go to aforceforgood.uk/union-supporters. And you can donate from anything from £1.15 a week, which works out at £5 a month. And we really depend upon our union supporters. They represent a big fraction of what we need each year. And remember our Christmas crowdfunder, which will be coming up. We'll be telling you all about that. It starts on the 9th, and there'll be the first ever world's first union telethon coming up on Saturday, the 12th. And if you'd like to be on that, drop us a message and we'll make sure that we Zoom call you, and you can be broadcasting live as well during our 10-hour marathon telethon to help our efforts to save the union, which is in need next year. Folks, I just want to say thank you for watching. We are going to say goodbye now. Please do, if you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. That really helps us, and subscribe to us. We've got 894 subscribers. We need to get over 1,000 by the end of the year. That's our goal. So if you can subscribe to us on YouTube, please do so. Thanks for watching on Facebook. We've had everybody on Facebook for the entire hour today. We are going to bring this to a close. Anything else that I need to say? No, just remember it's our Black Friday sale. Go to Teespring. We've got the links up there. We'll put the link up again. And when you purchase stuff at the checkout, say there's a wee click on I have a promo code. And the promo code is AFFG 2020. And you can get 15% off. And also you can get our books and our badges and our umbrellas and flags and so on at our shop on our website. And that also represents a critical fraction of the income that we need each year to survive, on top of our Yule Britannia Christmas crowdfunder coming up in a fortnight. Ladies and gentlemen, it just remains for me to say thank you very much for watching. God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the Queen.